Michele Glass here. Welcome, anatomists and physiologists. This is our last video for chapter 5. Woohoo! One section left is just kind of talking a little bit about some diseases and disorders that involve the integumentary system. So we're just going to do sort of a light review. We're not going to get too detailed here. So let's first talk about skin cancer. And we mentioned about cancer already during cell cycle. We said that cancer is basically your cells that are no longer obeying the cell cycle. So they're no longer paying attention to those checkpoints. And this is happening primarily as a result of ultraviolet radiation. Now, we just finished talking about how some UV radiation is important for the production of vitamin D3, but we are seeing higher incidence of skin cancer pretty much because we've pretty heavily degraded our ozone layer. So that's putting us at more risk for UV radiation. Remember, all skin types do need to protect ourselves by using sunscreen and seeking shade and protecting with clothing, right? So with our skin cancer, let's mention that cancers can be either described as benign, which means it's not spreading, or it can be described as having metastasizing, which means that it's spreading from its original location. So benign cancers are typically really easy to treat. It's something that could perhaps just either be left alone and monitored or removed easily through a surgery or a procedure. Metastasized cancer means it's spreading through the body. And so this is where, really life is at risk in this particular case. Cancers are named usually for their origin, where they start out. So we have basal cell carcinoma. Carcinoma means cancer. So basal cell carcinoma is talking about those stratum basale cells, right? We have squamous cell carcinoma. So that's going to be primarily that area of the stratum spinosum. And then we have melanoma, which is going to be your melanocyte. And of course, danger there is you have a melanocyte spreading melanin through those melanosomes. So you do want to be very cautious about that. When diagnosing or paying attention to cancer, we have these memory device of the ABCs, where A is looking for asymmetry of the location. B is talking about the borders. Are the borders of that spot regular or irregular? Irregular is usually of concern. Color is important. So if there's a lot of variation in brown or black, that spot is suspicious. The diameter is of concern, so greater than 6 millimeters. And then the last is evolving or changing. So if you have a questionable spot, you look for, is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? Are the borders regular or irregular? What is the color like? How large is it? And is it changing? When we talk about skin disorders, our text mentions 2 examples. We have eczema and then acne mentioned. So eczema is basically an allergic reaction. You have patches of dry, itchy, inflamed skin. In the case of eczema, dry, itchy, inflamed skin. Acne is where you get a clogged and then possibly infected pore, We do see this often showing up at puberty with the initial onset of sex hormones. So remember, that's when both your apocrine sweat glands get busy, but also your sebaceous glands get busy. And so there's, more opportunity for those pores to become clogged. And then as a result of that, potentially infected. Burns are dangerous because you have increased risk for dehydration. You're basically, losing that outer barrier that's protecting the insides of the body. And you also have an increased risk of infection. So the two hazards with a burn is the increased dehydration and increased infection risk. We have 4 degrees. So you have 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, and 4th degree burns. And it's all in how deep that burn is. So the 1st degree is just only epidermis. Second degree is epidermis and some dermis. A 3rd degree is epidermis and dermis are destroyed. And 4th degree then is even deeper. So you get underlying bone and muscle damaged. Okay, moving on. We have bed sores. Bed sores are described as decubitus ulcers. And these are actually caused from constant long-term unrelieved pressure these sores are pretty awful. So a lot of times we see this in a patient who is bed-bound or wheelchair-bound. So somebody with very limited mobility. You see it very often in nursing homes where you have patients laying in bed all the time and only and unable to, they're not laying in bed and squirming and wiggling. They're laying in bed in one position all of the time. And so in that case, you start to see the breakdown of cutaneous membrane, you start getting into that adipose tissue, and then you can go deeper as well. And so these are difficult wounds to heal because you are destroying those stem cells that you need for repair. And so one of the treatments is, of course, just prevent that from happening. And so one of the best ways to prevent that from happening is to move patients. So very often, especially long-term care facilities, you have patients on a rotation where you're moving their position every couple of hours. Next, we have stretch marks. Stretch marks are a result of rapid growth where the body has maybe changed in size pretty significantly over a quick period of time. So this can occur both in puberty as well as pregnancy. So these are both times when the body is expected to change size at a fast pace. And so you're pretty much overstretching those elastic fibers in the dermis, and then it leaves a mark in the skin. And those do kind of degrade somewhat over time. They become less obvious, but that's essentially what that is. And the last one I want to mention here is the callus. And this is where the stratum basale is triggered to have an increased division. So you have an area of the body that's experiencing a lot of abrasion. So maybe you have a new pair of shoes and they're rubbing the foot at the same place where your old shoes didn't rub, or you're learning to play guitar. And so you're putting a lot of pressure of your fingertips onto the strings, or it's spring and you're getting out the shovel and you're working in the garden for the first time in several months, right? And so all of these can cause sores to develop on the skin. And when your outer layer of your skin is experiencing this kind of constant level of degradation in this way, then the stratum basale is like, oh, that area of the cutaneous membrane needs to be a lot thicker. So it just kind of like amps up and it builds a callus there such that you can wear those shoes and it doesn't bother. You can play the guitar and it doesn't bother. You can dig in your garden and it doesn't bother. Last little bit of conversation I wanted to have with you here was regarding repair when the tissue's damaged. So very first thing that's going to happen is we're going to, especially if we've cut down to the dermis, we've cut some blood vessels, and so a blood clot will form, and we'll learn that process in A&P2. And then we'll see fibroblasts. We mentioned these as being part of the papillary layer. They're going to be important in depositing like a collagen fiber scaffold is what I'm going to call it. It's a framework basically so that we can repair our tissue. So it's something for our cells to attach to and build on. And so then what we see happening is the blood capillaries are going to increase circulation. And with that, we get more oxygen, we get more macrophages, which are important in both removing the damaged tissue as well as any invading pathogens. We get all those kind of hormone signals that we need to trigger repair. And I kind of jumped ahead here a little bit. The blood capillaries bring the macrophages, and kind of the last step is that the macrophage or immune cells is going to clean up debris, damaged cell tissue, pathogens, and so forth. And so what we'll see with a scar tissue is that you have a collagen-rich tissue. So you have an abnormal amount of collagen fibers that's coming when those fibroblasts, did all that deposition of collagen fiber scaffolding. We have no accessory structures. Accessory structures would be hair and glands. So you're not getting sebaceous glands, you're not getting sweat glands built back in place. And you actually should have a reduced blood supply. I'm going to say reduced vascular tissue, which is why very often a scar tissue is going to have a different kind of coloration to the surrounding tissue. Some people form a keloid, which is where you have like excessive scar tissue. So you get, it can also be called hypertonic scar tissue. So you end up with like a raised, basically it's a raised scar. Kind of the opposite of that is what's called an atrophic scar. And these are like sunken. And you get this often with acne scars, or y'all don't know about this because maybe you never had chickenpox because you got that lovely vaccine. But chickenpox scars can also do this atrophic kind of scar tissue. Okay, y'all, we did it. We finished chapter 5. Thank you so much. As always, take care of yourselves and each other.